you don't get the cops effort right now, you're going to have a problem.
This is a video you saw first here on 7 Eyewitness News and has since been picked up nationally. State Supreme Court Justice Mark Grisanti and his wife Maria in a physical fight with neighbors along with Buffalo police. This all happened back in June, and now about a month later, Erie County District Attorney John Flynn decided not to charge Grisanti nor his wife.
So that leaves some questioning whether Grisanti's political connections helped him get off the hook. All new this morning, our I-Team Chief Investigator Charlie Specht is digging into those connections and pressing the district attorney on whether or not they played a role in his decision.
Much of the country now knows State Supreme Court Justice Mark Grisanti as the shirtless judge. And even District Attorney John Flynn recognizes the absurdity of Grisanti's street fight with his neighbors.
This is, quite frankly, a bunch of 50 and 60-year-old people acting like children, acting like clowns, quite frankly, all right?
You need to get if you don't get the cops effort right now, you're going to have a problem.
But neither Buffalo police nor DA Flynn found any criminality on the part of the judge, even when Grisanti shoves a police officer who tries to handcuff his wife.
Hey!
Arrest me? We're not doing this right now.
Hey!
We are not doing
No. Dude!
Keep your hands off.
You better get off my wife.
That decision has some questioning whether Grisanti's political connections let him off the hook. Specifically his ties to the Faraletto family, which is active in Democratic politics and has ties to DA Flynn. State Supreme Court Justice Paula Faraletto, who is the administrative judge for the 8th Judicial District, fueled some of that speculation when she wrote to Grisanti's neighbor in July defending the judge, saying, "While you indicate his status as a judge has somehow benefited him, the opposite appears to be true, as the local news media does not usually cover disputes, nor the district attorney's office make public statements about cases they are not prosecuting." Judge Faraletto later walked back those comments after 7 Eyewitness News aired this video, but she didn't disclose that her son Joel worked as deputy chief of staff for then State Senator Grisanti before serving on the Buffalo Common Council, or that her other son John works as a prosecutor under DA Flynn, or that her family, including her husband, has given tens of thousands of dollars to the Erie County Democratic Committee, which endorsed Flynn when he ran for DA.
Buffalo is a really small community. It's a small political community.
A spokesman for the state court system called the connections, quote, coincidental and immaterial. But Rob Galbraith, a senior researcher with the nonprofit Public Accountability Initiative, says political context matters.
Judge Grisanti and the Faraletto family are both part of the same sort of broader political and social network that it's really important context for considering the outcome that the Grisantis saw in this interaction with the police.
People,
That's true. Yes.
you know, people look at this and they look at some of the campaign contributions and they say, gee, this looks like a lot of the same people that are involved in politics go to the same parties and stuff, and it just smells kind
It's a
of
small world. Absolutely.
fishy.
It's a small world. I can tell you this. Again, I wasn't aware of that Judge Faraletto letter. Okay, so I wasn't aware of that until you mention it right now. Two, up until yesterday, I had no idea that Joel Faraletto used to work in Grisanti's office. Okay. And three, those two really don't affect me at all, okay? The third one, though, is in my realm, okay? So I'll address that. I can tell you for sure, okay, that John Faraletto, the ADA in my office, had absolutely nothing to do with this case at all.
So did anybody call you and make a phone call and say, look, why don't you lay off this guy? He's a friend of ours.
Absolutely not.
Politics did not
Absolutely not, Charlie.
enter into this in any way.
Absolutely not. Now, our chief investigator, Charlie Specht, is live with us this morning. Charlie, let me ask you a couple of questions here. No criminal charges, but is there any way that Judge Grisanti could face any consequences here as it pertains to the bench?
He could, Ed, because we learned for the first time through the reporting of this story definitively that the State Commission on Judicial Conduct is actually investigating Justice Grisanti. Now, that state board can do anything from censure a judge and they would remain on the bench to full removal from the bench. So it's really, he could still potentially lose his seat, and he does make over $200,000 a year in that job.
That's a lot of money. And Charlie, you also mentioned the connections with the Faralettos. What do they have to say about all of this?
The Faralettos are not talking at this point. We spoke briefly with Councilman Joel Faraletto. You can see that in our web story. The judge, however, or her husband, not speaking publicly anymore.
You know, Charlie, a lot of people remembering Mark Grisanti from his time as a state senator. He helped get the same-sex marriage bill passed. But walk us through how he became a judge here.
So Justice Grisanti, interestingly, was never actually elected for that judgeship. If you remember, he was a state senator until 2014 when he lost to Democrat Mark Panapinto. Governor Cuomo then appointed him to a court of claims judgeship in 2015. He then became an acting state Supreme Court justice. By some as a political favor for Grisanti's key vote as a Republican on making same-sex marriage legal in New York, if you remember, was a huge priority for Governor Cuomo back then.
And of course, you mentioned Panapinto, who's got his own issues. Charlie, thank you very much. We've been following the story for you since the beginning here, and you can find all of our I-Team reporting on it right now on WKBW.com, right under the I-Team section.
All right.